Welcome to What Have You with Rachel Jankovic and Rebecca Merkel. This audio is brought to you by Canon Press.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I am Becca Merkel.
Guys, we've done it all now. We've vacationed, we've quit podcasting, we've come back to podcast again, and I think we even filmed a altogether too long documentary of ourselves making pie.
You guys.
With you.
It's a whole thing.
If you can't feel inspired to make pie with such excessively normal people as us, then there's... I haven't seen it yet, but...
I think you'll see it soon, because I think it's about to release.
I'm confident that we won't be flattered in it, that we will look like your very regular people who are making pie. So we wanted to encourage you all, because you know the 4th of July is coming.
It's coming. It is coming.
And if there was ever a reason for fasting and prayer other than the 4th of July...
What?
Saying just like celebrating our liberties right now feels like a bit of a
little oxymoron.
It's
happening.
more like, yes, but anyways, we will have lots of pie, thanking the Lord for our liberties and praying that God will
give them back,
redirect us back in the paths of
liberty,
and freedom in Him. But anyways, that's a sidetrack there. Just telling you, it does seem a little bit something funny.
Make 6 pies together, and then we kind of just freewheeled it right through there, and Jemima, sweet angel that she is, tried to wrestle a
narrative arc,
a recipe out of it.
Oh, good.
Yeah, no, she did it. I feel like she did a good job.
Okay, good.
Between me being like, hey Rachel, what do you think? Should I add more sugar? And you out of the frame, like, maybe.
Well, you know how it is. The thing is that cooking, I've told Becca this, I had this realization the other day. So many moons ago, like I think we were in the Hayes house, so it had to have been either before Blair or when Blair was a baby.
Okay.
So probably about 10 years ago.
Okay.
I actually remember having the thought that was like, I should learn how to cook. Maybe I wanted it before that, but I got more serious about it at that point. Should learn to cook without a recipe.
Mm-hmm.
And that just seems like something that a person should learn to do.
Okay.
But when I envisioned that, I think it was going to be a lot more artisanal than what has come to pass in my life.
As you say this, I suddenly had a question about whether or not we included one of the steps in the recipe that we put in the video. It's okay. It's fine.
Well,
we got it.
What happens for me is that at the time, and this is, I just want to encourage you all to make weird and ambitious goals for yourself, and then see what you can do in the normal course of your life to like learn how to do that. Because I remember it was around the same time that I was like, I want to be able to go to the store and buy something. I want to buy an ingredient because it looks good or it's a good price and know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And already know, because I'm like, that looks like a good piece of meat, and I can already intuit how I would go about preparing that. Because at the time, I was very not clear about the differences between different kinds of roasts, or what would you do with this. And really a lot of that just takes years of cooking to figure that out.
But it doesn't. Yes, it does. But it takes years of intentionally trying to cook that way, because
you're working towards your better education.
But let's say that you'd been cooking for 40 years, but you never made anything but casseroles out of a can and a frozen bag of this.
Or even great food, but always doing the next step you were told to do.
You could be a very, very accomplished in one specific genre, but then never have branched out to find out about other pieces of meat.
Yeah,
because you stay in your little narrow groove, you know? Mm-hmm. And I feel like that does boil down to what we were talking about the other day, which is the need for, like, imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And creativity, I guess. Being willing to be interested outside of the way you've always done it.
Yeah, and I think, like, I can think of moments that were really pivotal for me, like, in funny, like, little breakthrough moments where you're like, hang on, you know, like, just realizing that you can, I think sometimes I think back, like, I know that there were amazing cooks well before we had nearly the, like, detailed cooking devices.
Well, that's what I was
So you're like, wait, surely it's not the end of the world if it's at 350 degrees instead of 375.
I was going to say that because I did learn
362 instead of 350.
I learned that living in England when our stove was a deep mystery, and I had no clue what any of it just dialed up to 11, which is not normal because even the other English people were like, I don't know what that means. Usually they go to 9 or something.
Yeah.
Something, I can't remember. But mine did not even calibrate the way theirs normally did.
Yeah,
it was
so
some sort of a weird... And I did discover that, you know what? Actually, it is entirely possible to cook lots of foods at different temperatures, and then you started to get sort of a feeling of like, well, I think I'm gonna crank it to 7 now.
Yeah, but okay, so back when I wanted to learn to do this, I was trying to think through, like, how do you approach a piece of meat that you just, like, I guess what I mean is that before that point, if someone had said, here's some country style ribs, I would have been like, I don't know.
I would still come up looking flat-faced about a country style rib.
Not me, Becca. I have been paying attention to a country style rib. I'll tell you a secret. It's not a rib. It's a strip of, like, it's more like pork shoulder cut into a strip. So it's actually a time-saving device if you were ever going to make, like, carnitas or something that you want smaller pieces of a pork shoulder for. Using country ribs is a handy way of getting, like, the big blobs of fat already trimmed off of, like, you can quickly cut it into cute, smaller pieces to make carnitas.
Okay.
Whatever. The point is, I remember feeling like when I realized that if you cook pork sirloin for 3 hours at 300 in the Dutch oven with stuff, it's like it was things like, oh wait, that's actually a principle, not a method. Like the low and slow, roughly what temperature would you do to get this to be falling apart?
Well, I probably have told this story. Sorry everyone, bear with. When we were in England the first few months, it was really depressing. The food was, because I knew how to cook, but I knew how to cook in America, and all of the ingredients were wrong, and I couldn't find ingredients I needed, and I didn't know what these ingredients were, and so I was trying to make familiar recipes that would always come out tasting slightly off. Yeah. And it's not even like it was bad, it was just not familiar.
It's just you were aiming for something you knew, and you were not getting something you knew.
Yeah, and it's like when you go to somebody else's house and you eat their lasagna, it might be great lasagna, but it tastes different than the one you're used to. And that's how
more of a trouble as a child.
Yeah, but the thing is,
I love spaghetti. What's wrong with your spaghetti?
Except for when you're kind of homesick.
Yeah.
That's the other thing, is it would be like, what? This doesn't taste... Or I would be like, oh, I think I'll make enchiladas this week. And then I would discover there's not an enchilada sauce to be had, or definitely not the green sauce that I wanted, or whatever it was. And so I was starting to feel a little wan about the whole situation. And then the real low moment came. we're in Winchester with the kids, and it was like winter now, and I remember being like cold, and we're in Winchester, which is this beautiful, like we're just seeing this, statue of Alfred and looking around at the shops and things. And there was this little stand selling hot chestnuts in paper cones, and me being like, oh, that's so like, it seemed so Englandy and so neat. So we went over and bought some, and they were just gross. It was like, I was like, really? Is that what this experience is? Like, it seemed so sort of poetic, and it was cold.
Let's have hot chestnuts. What's wrong with this?
I know. I was like, what is that crumbling? I mean, what? Like, that's what a chestnut tastes like? I just felt like everything came to a head at that moment. Like, I can't. The food here, I could weep. And then I saw in the window across the street, it was a Jamie Oliver cookbook that just said how to cook. And I was like, you know what? I don't know how to cook in this country. I thought I did, but I don't. And so I went straight over and I bought How to Cook because it had like a picture of the cow carved up into roasts. Yeah. But the cow is cut up into different shapes in England, and I didn't know what any of it meant, and I was like, I know how to cook beef in America. I don't even know what this beef means. Yeah. It would be a joint. Yeah. And I was like, what does that mean which to me? One? Yeah. Which joint? Like, is it a knuckle? Is it is it an elbow? Like, what joint? And anyway, I just had to learn the lingo and everything, but all I'm saying is that was a real big moment, because then I was like, okay, I'm going to pretend like I actually don't know anything. I'm going to go back to the beginning. And that was all I needed, was that little shove to put me on the right road of like, I am now not going to try to cook American food in England. I'm just going to try to cook good food in England. And it turns out that is entirely possible to do that part.
It's good. It's a blessing that you can do that.
Yeah, but I just mean, like, sometimes it's like,
there's a little mental hang up on something.
Let's just go back to the drawing board, and I'm going to look at a picture of a cow, and I'm going to find out what that piece is, and, like, how do I reckon with that now?
Right, and some of the, like, for me, there was a specific phase where I started trying to make some more, like, I think growing up we probably had stir fry or something, but no, we didn't make Asian food at home. Plus, there was no access to that at the time if we had wanted to. But I remember it being like a surprise the first time that I bought fish sauce. Yeah. And you're like, what rank deed is this? Like, you bought it and then you're horrified by the smell of that stuff, and then it gets on your fingers and it's hideous. But then you get to know its place in the recipe because I made more things that had it, and you realize, no, this is actually adding something that you can't get another way. Or mirin was another thing like that for me, where I was like, that's that flavor. You couldn't, I just remember it being like figuring out what that was meant that you actually do have more knowledge now about things. Yeah. And I think that part of the skill of trying to cook without a recipe for me was, if I made something and I liked it, I would try to make it the next time from memory. Like, just try to do we like that recipe. How can I kind of do that recipe from memory? And sometimes I would check, and I want to be clear here. I still don't bake without, I could do bread, but I don't bake without a recipe. I still reference the ratios on baking. But with other stuff, I think that it would, because we feed big crowds often enough now, that I actually think that I would go crazy if I was trying to multiply recipes to the right amount for what we're doing. Because
I think I'm a little I'm not opposite, because it's true, if I was cooking for people in my house, it would be more like that. But if I'm doing an event where I'm getting other people to cook for me, I really have to have something
I would too.
Quantifiable.
No, I'm not saying I'm beyond recipes. I do write them out for things. I do pay attention to them. I'm talking about, though, that often you're like, this is how much chicken we have. Or you're trying to be like, does that look like enough? And to actually try to duplicate in like times 12s of 1.5 teaspoons or something. It's easier to just sort of ballpark it and go.
Yeah. I think I do end up doing a lot of conversions in math, trying to go from 12.5 times 3/4 of a teaspoon, translate that to cups.
I have one of those magnets on my fridge, though, that does the conversion to different,
I still have to double check if we're moving to ounces, but I've gotten the teaspoons, cups, whole thing gone. I mean, I do that often enough now that
You figured that out.
That one's in there.
I guess all I'm trying to say is it's interesting if you just pay attention when you are cooking to like, oh, I made a salad dressing. What were the ratios of like acid to fat?
Sure.
And how was that? Because you can do that without a recipe once you know, and you're like, oh, here's the ingredients I have.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's random. But the part that you were talking about, imagination, is I think thinking that your work at home is for more in the longer term than just, it's like getting good at this work.
Well, I think it's a little bit like there is so much territory to explore that it seems like you're sitting there, you're looking out at this big vista of the Rocky Mountains, and to just kind of sit down on the porch and say, no, I can see it from here. I've got it how I like it.
This'll do.
It's, like, just wander out there.
And
like,
not just,
see
and
what
not
there
just
is.
in cooking. In
in
all
everything.
kinds of areas. Like, don't be so shy of what there is out there.
Explore and find out and poke your nose into places you just didn't know were there,
I'm not sure I'm a good counter to this point. Wow, did you see that hawk is getting something off the ground? I'm not sure that I feel like I'm very, very easily distractible into like, what? Let's look over here at what? Oh, wow.
The hawk is like
right with us.
Yeah.
That's fun. I thought for a hot second he might just be coming in the window. I'm coming in, but he didn't. So anyways, I guess what I was gonna say is I'm highly sometime last a couple Sabbaths ago, I sat down to look something up on my phone, and it was like it was something about what we were making. I don't know. I was tired. It was the afternoon. I stopped to take a little check on something. I don't even know what it was now. But it was like I resurfaced, being like, wait, why am I reading about this? It was a Food 52 thing so it was a Persian rice dish, which had nothing to do with what we were serving. Nothing to do. I'm like reading up on how do you get the crispy bottom in this Persian rice dish. And then I'm sort of like, maybe I didn't need to do that research right now, but it did seem like something I ought to know. It was like, we should figure this out, but it had nothing to do with my current duty.
No. It's true.
But I bought a book that was like food tips and cooking tricks or something, or like just reading, like regularly thinking that this is your business to know about.
Well, I remember one thing that was like interesting in giving you a shove, was, remember that phase a long time ago where we all joined the cookbook club?
Oh yeah, that big time did that.
And
because that was not a sustainable business model for them.
No, but the thing is you got to pick whatever 3 cookbooks a month and they would send it to you, but you just looked at, here's the list of cookbooks, and there was something interesting about, I need to pick 3 for this month because they're going to ship it to me. And so I picked 3, and I remember the stuff that came out of that was like, I don't know, one was a breakfast cookbook that was terrific in a few ways because it made you think about certain things a little bit differently. And there was an Italian restaurant cookbook that made you think about,
that
pasta
was Rouse,
differently.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
I still love their that sauce is so good.
Yeah. So anyway, it was just kind of like, even if you only came away with one thing from it, you could do that from a library. Just go and grab 3 random cookbooks and read through it, and maybe you get like really interested in this sort of poetry of New York Italian food, or
or you just are there. It's like I would tell the kids, I wouldn't. I did when I was substituting for you about poetry and stuff. Is that concept where people put a big map on their wall and you put a pin everywhere that you've been?
Yeah.
That being content in one, it's not like, being content is not the same thing as putting on blinders and refusing to see what has been given to you.
It's not
because
being boring.
being content is very important. But you have access to so many different places and thoughts and things to visit in different, like,
even just
be
virtually,
an interested, be an interested person in terms of, like, let's think about gardening, or let's think about food, or let's think about the fiber arts, or let's think about even just enough to, like, be aware that those things
exist.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I was talking to some of my kids the other day about just kind of being interested people, which they just are, which is nice. But
Shad, actually, quoted right in the dance recently, and he's 8. He'll be 8 soon, and he said, to be bored in this world is to be boring in this world. Sorry, that's all.
No, it's fine. It's funny when they encounter sort of the
lethargy,
the lump, the person who can't possibly think outside.
I think it's imaginative lethargy, because it's not,
or even like people who only will do things the way they're done in middle class suburbia. That's all. We don't do. It's hilariously snobby in one way, because it's like, we don't do things that aren't done. Like, you could picture some, I don't know. It's the same haughty attitude as like a snobby old money kind of a thing. But then it doesn't have anything really exciting to recommend it, like old money might.
At least old money might have some great art on the walls.
There might
somewhere.
be some like cool heirlooms in pewter. So... But this is like, I don't wear socks that aren't, the right pairing with that shit. I don't know. It's just like, it's so kind of,
I think you mean
duddy.
like if the only way to decorate is the way that you've seen decorated everywhere. Like, all you do is you go buy a printed canvas at, I don't know. I guess I was going to say, it's like the Marshalls. We assemble the things.
Yeah.
But for no particular reason other than that this is what's done.
Well, this is what's done in the little narrow channel that I live in. And that's the thing is like, well, poke your head up and look around and see, because there's some interesting other stuff going on out there. And I don't know, it's funny how I think social media in one way makes the possibilities, when I say social media, I mean in like the sort of Pinterest or like that, where you could explore, but it also pitches you exactly what you want and are interested in. So in one way, it could make you even more entrenched in a narrow groove, or it could give you the opportunity to go out and have a wander through other things.
Okay, like this is a weird example, but I think this one is at least funny. But do you ever look through some of those like time-saving hacks or something where they're like 50 tips you never thought of to fix?
Wow, some of the time.
And that's the thing is that there's probably like 1 in 100 that are actually like, oh, that's a good idea. But other times you'll see a list that's like 312 ways to use the clear plastic shoe holder that hangs over the door in your closet. And then you're like, whoa. And
or the mesh bag that the oranges came in.
Yes, and you're like, this is not the boring side of it, but it is weirdly stuck in one little rut. Like, the thing I'm gonna do is figure out how to use bread ties. In my hair. I put a bread tie in my hair. I've already done it, guys. I'm the master of this list. But that idea, I don't know, the funniness of just being so focused on one thing that you're not looking at, like...
Well, okay, so I'm going to try and tie this to something slightly bigger, but it's similar. So, like, NSA is a liberal arts school. And one example that my husband uses when he's talking about the value of the liberal arts is that, like, the sort of standard educational system is incredibly specialized. So, like, you get onto this bike path and you stay on this bike path, and this is how you go from here to being that job. Like you get on the path and then you pedal down the path and you stay on the path and then you'll end up at your destination. And so you have all of these sort of pre-worn grooves in, like, so you have a university that has these tracks and you get on this track and you don't get off of it really. And so it's like having a wilderness with a whole lot of, here's this road, here's this road, here's that road.
Stay on the path.
And he's like, but the liberal arts is all about, here's your 4-wheel drive, go find out what's in between. Go, because there's a whole lot
or make sense of it all in one picture,
yes,
sort of.
But like you can actually go from this path to that path and see how they're connected. But you can also see what's all the kind of uncharted stuff in the middle. And I think what it requires is like an interest and an inquiring mind, because the world is really big. And there's a lot to find out.
But a really big part of the inquiring mind and the interest is believing that there is value there. And that is a direct reflection on what you think God is like and why we're here and what we're supposed to be doing and what God has done for us. So when you think that, if you like, because the desire to make delicious food could be really self-serving and it could just be petty. It can also be a desire to honor the incredible gifts that God has given us, both in table fellowship, but also in a world where things come out of the dirt with incredible different flavors and things. And like, do you ever marvel at the fact of like what cinnamon adds to our life, but it's bark? You know what I mean? Like how much more like that these things come to us from the hand of a God who loves us, and that to be bored by that, to be like, meh, it's to be that kid who's so spoiled that they're not grateful for anything. They don't see what they've been given. They can't enjoy it because they're like, well, why would I enjoy this when there's other people got better stuff?
And there's like the enjoying the delicious food. Like you're saying, so maybe you're doing it to be really self-aggrandizing and everyone will think I'm so amazing.
I'll impress the world with this.
But you could also do it just to give to the people you love. But you could also do it even if it's just you in your apartment and you make something delicious that you are thanking God for and enjoying because he gave it to you. And you are actually taking that gift and appreciating it and looking at it and
marveling
reveling in it.
Spending time being like, whoa, did you also know that this happens? Like that this is a way to do this, or and I think that about like decorating or crafting of different kinds. So you're like, have you ever thought about how incredible textiles are?
Right.
Have you ever thought about the fact that God gave us colors and gave us like that we didn't have to have colors or
all
feels
the like crazy different traditions of textiles where you're like, think of, the world of caftans. Who knows? Who knows what's over there?
I fell deep in a hole with I think it's indigo. I think it's called Junco.
Oh.
Maybe I made that up. Indigo, something that it's like really interesting. Like the development of that kind of thing it's fascinating.
Or
it's like, ooh, I want
purple. The purple dye of the Phoenicians.
Well, that was really weird. The gold threads. The
No,
woman.
that's different.
I know. The lady who has to dive.
Stuff. No, this purple you get out of these
and Lydia,
hideous,
the merchant
hideous
of purple
snails, and you have to. I think they're like eat cadavers or something. Like they're not a pleasant little creature that you fish out of the ocean and squeeze it for purple.
Hexaplex trunculus.
What are you looking up?
Tyrian purple.
Oh yeah.
Production from sea snails. Yeah. And wouldn't that have been what Lydia was a merchant of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just like there's so much out there to find out about, to be impressed by, to be interested in, and to get good at. And way too many things to get good at. There's not enough time. Right. And so you better get cracking is the thing.
I've recently been experiencing this panic attack of how many things I need to be doing. Like, and real odd ones. Like, I'm like, why have I not been doing art lessons?
Yeah.
What's wrong with me? Let's work on folk music. Why don't I play the guitar? This has been a problem I've been having lately. And you're kind of like, yeah, probably gonna have to choose less of these things to pursue right now. But I was reading, so this is a phase in our lives where the scale of life has been building really quickly on us.
Okay.
And not just us, I think a lot of people, but my point is, you just have that feeling of like the Lord is changing the magnitude of what he's asking for us to be doing.
Right.
And it's very, very easy to get frantic about like specific questions that you have, like, how will we do this? How will we be the kind of people who can do this? How will we, like, you want to know specific outlines of specific ways you're going to accomplish something. And so I loved in the Bible reading challenge the other day, we were reading, pretty sure that this is 2 Thessalonians, but it might have been 1 Thessalonians because I just took a picture of it.
I noticed the crack about unreasonable and evil men in 2 Thessalonians, and I was like, isn't it true that they've been with us always? Unreasonable and evil.
Well, this is the one
it was like protect us from unreasonable and evil men.
And you're like,
it's like,
I've heard of those.
Yep.
I've heard of those.
I've seen one or two.
So this one is the prayer for the church. And I just thought that this was so good. Now may our God and Father himself and our Lord Jesus Christ direct our way to you, and may the Lord make you increase and abound in love to one another and to all, just as we do to you. This part is the part that I love, that the Lord make you increase, not just the Lord give you more you need to increase for, but also he will do it. And so that he may establish your hearts blameless in holiness before our God and Father at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all his saints. That part that is saying, may he increase you so that he might make your hearts blameless in holiness. To me, I was like, isn't it funny how easy it is to be like expanding your to-do list, but realizing that the actual answer is an increase of holiness. It's not an increase of better recipe management. It's an increase of holiness will help you to do this better.
Yeah.
And that was it's such a comfort because it cuts through all of the specific questions that you don't feel like you have an answer to yet. Like, how will I manage to do this thing? It's like, well, because Lord himself will increase, may he increase us and may he increase our holiness.
Yeah. And I feel like especially, how everyone's opening every email everywhere with, in these uncertain times. But the truth is they're no more uncertain than any other time.
No, totally.
It's just that we happen to notice that we don't have a handle. I think this is a moment
where we've all...
And the thing is like, we're all noticing we've come to a real curvy patch in the road and we don't know what's around the next corner. And so it's easy to fret about 8 corners from here. What am I going to be doing? And it's like, you have no idea.
You don't know, guys.
You don't know. The only thing you can do is...
It's that book of James where he actually tells us, to be careful to actually say, if the Lord wills.
But like, the only thing you can do is take the next step of faithful obedience.
Right.
That's what you can do right now.
That's the thing.
And that's how you can, like, keep your eyes on Christ and trust that he's going to be with you still 8 corners from now. But what you could do is jump into the bushes right here and thus guaranteeing...
You could try disobedience right now, which would not actually pan out to help you.
Which means that 8 corners from now, you'll already be not where you should be. So...
Well, what I was going to say is that idea of... it's... I guess what I mean is that you can think like, we can't accomplish that there, but it's also Psalm 119, that I will run after your commands, for you will enlarge my heart. And that trusting God to make us what we need to be. One of the other things that you will notice, if you do trust God, I already mentioned earlier that back when I was dreaming a dream of cooking without a recipe.
Oh, yeah.
I never envisaged what I am doing now with it. Like, I think in a million years, I thought it would be some kind of artsy,
going out to like
appetizer soiree where I have made something beautiful.
I have plucked the fruit from the tree.
Yes, I have clipped the fresh leaves of herbs from my garden, and I have done something interesting with the onion shoots, and I am doing I think that was my dream I was dreaming, right?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. It was just not what God had me doing having that dream for.
Yeah.
So fast forward to me frantically slapping undesignated recipes of enchiladas into an oven all around a cake that was much too big for itself and took way too long to bake because of that. And being like, how hot is the oven? We don't know. It should all shake out in time for the buffet. Like, I never saw that happening. And the thing that is interesting is that as you pursue things that God gives you an interest in and you do it, it has to be open-handed. And it would be easy to look on what God actually did with your desires and then get in a weird state of being hard on yourself about what has happened. But if you're walking with God, He's gonna do different things with you than you thought you were gonna do. And it's not like that's something to be grateful for. It's not something to
But also,
resent.
like, the good works, like, I don't remember where it is. Walk in the good works that He has prepared for you to do, where you walk faithfully now, and it turns out He has been preparing you for
the good works
that He has in store, and often there is nothing like what you thought you were.
You imagined a good work that you thought you wanted to get in shape for, but the Lord had a different thing.
Right,
but it was
often
good to follow Him.
Yes, He used that desire, and then He took you where He was planning to take you.
Yes.
With it,
and that should be something that gives a Christian a lot of joy and satisfaction. It can be something that, if you're not looking at it as what God has done, you can look at it resentfully. Like, I never meant to do this. I never intended to be this kind of person. I was
better than this.
I had higher standards.
I was going to be the person who was making lemon soufflés.
I was going to do something really beautiful. But instead, here I am with another tinfoil roaster pan. I was going to be better than this, and alas, I am not better than this. I always joke.
Oh, man.
You guys may not know this, but I specifically remember speaking out about the evils of hot dogs as a thing. Like, I was like, hot dogs, at no time and in no place is a hot dog a thing that a person, no. People don't need hot dogs was my position in life. Hot dogs are beneath us as a race. They are beneath humankind. And I had this, anyways, hot dogs being a weird problem of mine. Also, Texas sheet cakes.
Mm-hmm. Well, hot dogs are pretty gross.
Sheet cakes at all were a thing that I felt above.
Yeah.
I don't think I deigned to think about them enough to feel above them. I think I dismissed them entirely from the world. So then this is at a time when I had saved, back a reference to the lemon soufflés, because it was pre-internet at this time. I had saved a Martha Stewart, I believe, recipe for individual lemon soufflés, which were baked quite beautifully in a Meyer lemon shell with the lid to have on hand, the beautiful stemmed lemon lid still
with a leaf,
with a souffle. I mean, if you've ever made a souffle, you know that you have like a 7-second interval to feed those to people.
It is always
can you imagine yourself?
It's a depressing droop.
Yeah, I can't even imagine how bad those would look too. You'd be giving people an empty lemon rind. Treat yourself to something good in here. But it was really lovely. It was lovely in theory. It was a really beautiful thing. And this was a time when that was where my heart's attention was on such deeds as that. Well, come along my husband, who was so one of the ways we knew he was so custom prepared by the Lord for me in my life was that he was a great hot dog enthusiast. And more, I think, even than he thought he was, because he had managed a Chicago Foods restaurant. He was into the Chicago hot dog, not just any hot dog. Not like
He's a connoisseur in the world of hot dogs.
When it comes to hot dogs, Luke has strong opinions and talents in the hot dog world. So he knows that it needs to be a Mary Rosen poppy seed bun, and it needs to be a Vienna beef and all beef hot dog.
So
and all the toppings and the particular.
Picture those little ugly
puffy ballparks.
The ballparks floating in a saucepan of warm water.
But you can see how far the Lord has sanctified me that I can say, no, this is a really good hot dog.
And actually,
it is.
It is a good hot dog.
This is the thing.
But that good hot dog does not make me go back to a ballpark simmering in a pan of water.
Well, I still don't like that. But the point remains that the Lord called out of me this hot dog snobbery by bringing along a man who would have none of it, and then also sheet cakes, which have become sort of an integral part of my life. But at the time when I finally deigned to make a sheet cake, it was actually some kind of a spiritual event because I despised sheet cakes, Texas sheet cakes specifically.
Yeah.
I didn't like. And I don't know why I didn't. I had a lot of reasons in my heart, but there were particular ills about Texas sheet cakes that I didn't like. But then I saw a recipe. It was a Cooking Light, best of 20 years, best of Cooking Light, their Texas sheet cake, and it actually looked good. And Luke made some comment about it looking good, and the thought glimmered in my mind, I should make it. And then to be retaliated with, I would never. You won't catch me dead making that sheet cake. Well, I got over the problem, and I made the sheet cake. Probably for a Sabbath dinner or something, where you actually need to have a lot of servings of something. And I made it. Well, do you think anything has ever been a bigger hit with the... It's just the Lord honking my nose. Because, you finally are like, whatever. I'll make the Texas sheet cake. And the kids are all like, can I have it for every birthday?
I know.
Can I? And then I felt like I had basically become a Texas sheet cake. Everything has been...
Well, but I was telling you this the other day. I was getting cracked up because there's many times that I think God gives you something that he then asks you to lay down. And you have to wrestle with yourself, and then you have to lay it down.
And you're like, but I'm not better than hot dogs and sheet cakes.
Right. But then other times, after you've laid it down, and you feel proud of yourself for having laid it down, he asks you to pick it up again.
Becca and I are looking for the time that the Lord asks me to start doing something
Meyer
with
lemons.
Poached quail eggs.
Yeah.
But it hasn't come yet.
Not
we
yet.
don't know.
But I was telling Rachel this the other day, Hopkins quit poetry because he felt like it was too fleshly. It was an indulgence that he needed to let go of. So he just quit poetry. And then later, he picked it up again because he felt like he needed to. It's a funny... It's a funny thing. I'm not saying you're ever going to have to go wrestle with yourself and make Meyer lemon soufflés.
Not that way, but there's going to be...
you don't know.
But the Lord always guides us and always towards things that
so
we need to put our own life on the altar in so many ways.
And if you're the person who is a reverse snob about hot dogs, with hot dogs are all we ever eat, thank you very much.
No, or
maybe.
if you're a person who thinks it's a big waste of time to set a beautiful table.
Right.
Maybe that's something you need to put on the altar and
maybe
just
you
set
need
a
to work
beautiful
on
table. And if you're the person who thinks I will never deign to sit at a table that has not been beautifully set, you probably are the person who needs to not bother with that sometime.
And it's, I feel like you could take what we're saying and say, so basically, whatever you like, God wants you to do the opposite. And I don't think that that's what we're saying at all. It's more like, be ready to see that sometimes we get fossilized in our own little weird opinions.
And be a person who, because, okay, we were talking about this with, well, we probably have talked about this on here before, with weight loss as a thing. Because
Which
I was
we
like,
should talk about after that video.
after the I haven't seen it, guys, but I hear we look like fatzos.
No, it's like, oh my gosh. However,
Only I have had a photo of just my fat roll tweeted out to the world saying, Texas, Ohio. Lizzie Jake is coming soon. Rachel Jake, like, they probably didn't call me Lizzie Jake. Just look around the homeschool convention for this particular fat roll, and she will probably be attached to it. It was so funny. And then when I saw it, I couldn't stop the giggles. It was so bad. So when that happened, in case you missed that on a prior episode, it was because they sent a photo to the GHC convention, and then whoever tweeted it, the way Twitter auto crops the photo, so it was already not a professional. It was already a still shot from a video, then it was auto cropped to just be my midsection fat roll with my hands expressively doing something. In the middle of speech.
Oh, it's good.
All this is to say, I got distracted there. What I was trying to say is that weight loss is a thing like this that I think if you're trying to pursue it as a Christian, you can have all kinds of good reasons to do it. What you can't do is enter into the way the world tries to motivate you to do it, or the way that your own flesh probably suggests to you to do it, which is the kind of thing where maybe you insult yourself excessively and despise yourself to try to live to greater glories later. Or maybe you're full of envy and like you see people giving these hot tips of like post pictures of the women you wish you looked like to like fuel the fire within, which is evil Knievel. Or imagine yourself, strolling along and turning heads. Well, that's also clearly not a Christian motivation.
Or I love myself and I accept myself.
I am magical this way.
I am wonderful every which way.
Everything about me is goddess-like.
As I need to lose 300 pounds, I still love myself. And I am worth it.
Yeah.
And I deserve it.
Right. So there's the way the world wants to encourage you to do things like that is all like not Christian encourage. It's all things that you should be having flashing red lights about.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things is pursuing things like food, or like the way the world does this. They don't suggest it to you as a Christian way of doing it. And so one of the things that I think is the telltale Christian way of doing things is open-handedness, which means that you pursue something because you love God and you are always willing for him to either put something else in your hands that you need to do or take something out of your hands. Like when you say like something you need to put on the altar, something that's like, you know what, this is actually not attainable right now. Right. You should not be worrying about that right now, or
now it's time to worry about that.
Or things like a surprise pregnancy where you're pursuing God wholeheartedly thinking you're supposed to be doing something, and then you get pregnant and you're shocked and you can't believe it, and it's a huge interruption and everything.
Right.
The Christian posture of open-handedness prepares you for such surprises as that. Yeah. To be like, well, clearly this was God's will and we're gonna accept it.
Or you're going through an illness and you had to,
the Lord gave you that obstacle.
Right. And you just have to be grateful for it and then keep working, Exactly.
So all of that is to say, we hope you enjoy our fat and unflattering pie festival video.
But you should it should make you think, I bet the pie is good though.
Oh yeah, because it's what is that? Never trust a skinny cook. You can trust us, guys. You can trust us.
I'll tell you though, I've been very diligent on Weight Watchers, so let's all just pretend that I look different than that video.
I think people will tolerate us.
I think they will.
I think it'll be all right.
I think they've tolerated us through a lot of
if you're still here, then it's fine. Yeah. All right. Thanks for coming, and we'll see you next time. Right. Have fun with your pie. Oh, wait, we should say post something about make pie and post your pie. How should we say that? we just do it, guys. Just make a pie and tag us in it.
Yeah.
We want to know that you're all doing things that are festive and joyful and offered to God as we, celebrate this wild world that He's given us.
Exactly.
All right. Till next time.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this week's edition of What Have You. This audio is brought to you in part by New St. Andrews College. Are you wondering if any college will be open this fall? Look no further than New St. Andrews College. Graduating leaders who shape culture, living faithfully under the lordship of Jesus Christ.